lack of sleep affects judgment, hinders the ability to retain information, and reduces the ability to cope with stress. Over time, the effects of lack of sleep are much more serious. Cardiovascular disease, obesity, and severe impairment of cognitive functions are just a few of the ways that sleep deprivation prohibits us from achieving our peak performance. Around 30% of the U.S. workforce is clocking less than 6 hours a night on average, which creates the potential for some serious issues. In fact, some of the biggest disasters in history have stemmed directly from sleep deprivation. Exxon Valdez oil spill. Anyone who has driven for too long or without enough sleep can attest to how difficult it is to stay within those narrow painted lines on the road. Imagine the consequences of being at the helm of an oil supertanker with hardly any sleep at all. The results are just as you would expect, considered to be one of the worst environmental disasters of all time. The Exxon Valdez oil spill dumped almost 42 million liters, 11 million gallons, of oil into Prince William Sound off the coast of Alaska on March 24, 1989. The vessel was headed for Long Beach, California, on a route that the Exxon Shipping Company had traversed over 8,700 times in the previous 12 years. So this disaster came as a total surprise. Although maybe it shouldn't have, Captain Joseph Hazelwood was ultimately responsible for navigating the 300-meter (987 feet) ship through familiar waters to its destination. Unfortunately, the captain had downed a few drinks more than he should have and wound up turning over the helm to sleep-deprived third mate Gregory Cousins. Cousins was barely functioning because he had slept only 6 hours in the previous 2 days. Shortly after midnight, the Exxon Valdez collided with Bly Reef, a well-known hazard on this route, which ruptured 8 of the vessel's 11 cargo tanks. The supertanker called for help immediately, but it didn't matter. Though there were no human lives lost, the damage to the environment and wildlife was already done. The Exxon Valdez spill continues to hold the #1 spot for the costliest maritime accident of all time. Hundreds of miles of coastline were completely destroyed along with the ecosystem there. The grounding of the Star Princess cruise ship. In June 1995, passengers on the Star Princess, a Liberian cruise ship, likely had a very different idea of what they were in for when they boarded the 246-meter (806 feet) vessel just 5 days earlier. The 7-day cruise from Vancouver to Skagway, Alaska, was cut short on the 5th day when it ran into Poundstone Rock, 40 kilometers (25 miles) from Juneau, though the Star Princess sustained some serious damage to its starboard side, its bottom, and its oil tanks, which ruptured and spilled about 19 liters, 5 gallons, of oil. There were no injuries to the crew or the 1,568 passengers aboard. The National Transportation Safety Board determined that the grounding of the Star Princess was due to pilot performance, citing fatigue from sleep apnea. The Challenger explosion. It takes a lot of preparation to launch a shuttle into space, which results in many sleepless nights and long days for crew and support staff alike. On January 28, 1986, the Challenger launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida. 73 seconds later, it exploded, killing all 7 people aboard as the world watched in horror. In the aftermath, it was concluded that poor judgment due to sleep loss was a contributing factor. The top managers had been on duty since 1 a.m. the day of the launch after having had only a couple of hours of sleep the previous night. This made it all too easy for mistakes to be made. Tragically, these mistakes resulted in a fatal outcome. Gas leak in Bhopal, India. On December 2, 1984, the citizens of Bhopal went to bed unaware that many of them would never wake up. As they slept, one of the storage tanks at the Union Carbide India Limited pesticide plant began to leak. A faulty valve allowed water into the tank, and pressure quickly rose to catastrophic levels. At around 1 a.m. on December 3, a loud rumbling was heard from the plant, as the safety valve inevitably gave out. A plume of methyl isocyanate spilled into the air, and 3,800 people died instantly. 8 drowsy workers in the middle of the night were cited as one of the causes of the unfortunate domino effect that resulted in this tragedy. Approximately 15,000 people died and 600,000 were left with serious injuries ranging from respiratory problems to blindness.